Hey, you guys. So, all right, I figured out that my sewing room is my happy place. And so it's nice and bright in here, too. If you hear a little tap dancing, that's our pug walking around. She'll settle in. Um, all right, so we read yesterday, Heading South. Now, I'm going to read through book one today so that you have enough in case you want to read more. So we're reading Shelter for a Night, and I'm on page 31. We walked and walked, shadows getting longer and longer. I didn't ask the white lady how far up the river the ferry was, so we had to keep going till we saw it. The Sekish and the Yankees had been fighting on this side of the river. I could see how the big cannonballs had knocked limbs out of trees. I could see how they had knocked small trees completely out of the ground. I saw strips of cloth, buttons, sometimes a cap half buried under dry leaves and dirt. But we kept on going. We stayed in the bushes all the time, just enough in the open to keep the river in sight. Late that evening, I saw something like a big house floating on the river. I saw people in wagons on the other banks waiting for it to pick them up. I told Ned that's what we was going to ride on. Ned didn't say a thing, just followed me with that flint and iron in his hands. By the time we had reached the landing place on this side, the ferry was heading back. I felt so funny and weak standing there. I thought these little dried up legs was going to buckle under me. Walking through the swamps all time of night didn't scare me nearly much as seeing this big old thing coming toward me now. I asked Ned if he was scared too, but he shook his head. He wasn't much for talking. Turn the page. The ferry landed and the people in wagons got off. The people on this side got on and we got on with them. And where y'all think you're all going? The captain asked. Right off, I could see he was nothing but white trash. Me and this little boy going to Ohio, I said. Ohio, he said. He didn't know no more about Ohio than I did. I told him Ohio was in the north. Who y'all for, he said. We ain't for nobody, I said. We free as you. All right, little free. Y'all got money, he said. It'd take a nickel to ride on here. Y'all got a nickel each? No, sir. Then get straight off, he said. We got potatoes and corn, I said. And I got potatoes and corn in my house, too, he said. None of them bureau people gonna come round here cussing me of stealing free. We'll tell 'em you didn't steal us, I said. You ain't gonna tell 'em nothing, 'cause you ain't going nowhere, he said. Get off before I have one of my throw you off. Oh, Lucas, a big showed up. Me and Ned got off and sat down on the bank. After everybody else had got on, the ferry left for the other side. I could see it drifting across the river like a great big house. Looked like everything was going to end right there on this side of the river. I looked back at Ned. He was just sitting there with the flint and iron in his hands, watching the ferry but not saying a word. I wondered if he was thinking about his mama and his little sister. I was doing everything to keep from thinking about anything but going to Ohio. You all right? I asked Ned. He nodded his head a little. Almost sundown, the ferry came back. Captain hollered at me and Ned to get moving. We moved back 2 or 3 steps and sat down again. The captain and that he called Lucas still watching us. I thought he was going to make Lucas come out there and beat us up, but Lucas kept his distance. The ferry stayed on this side till dark. They had hung lanterns on it now. Just as it was getting ready to leave for the other side, I heard somebody hollering, "Hold her up! Hold her up!" I saw a man, all in black, riding toward the landing on a black horse. The man hopped off the horse and handed the reins to one on the boat. Then he looked and saw us sitting there. "Oh, there," he said. He said it like he couldn't make us out too good. I stood up so he could see I was a little girl. Yes, sir, I said. What y'all doing here? He said. We want to cross over, I said. Come along then, he said. Pick it up, pick it up. I already had my bundle in my hand, and Ned followed me with the flint and iron. When I got on board, I felt scared and funny. I thought these two little old legs was going to buckle under me now for sure. The ferry pushed away from the landing out on the river, and it looked like none of it was real, like I was dreaming all this. I felt all funny and giddy and tired as I was. I wanted to laugh, but I didn't. Where y'all headed? The man in the black suit asked me. He didn't sound like a Seckish at all. I had never heard nobody talk like him before. Ohio, I said. He was smoking a pipe. He jerked it out of his mouth quickly. I could hear it hit against his teeth. Ohio, he said. Y'all got people there? Ain't that a bit... Oh, Brian just interrupted us. Hold on. Oh, that's a bummer. Bummer. Tom Brady's leaving the Patriots. Back to Miss Jane. Ohio, he said. Y'all got people there? Ain't that a bit far for just two children? That one over there? That's your little bitty brother? He's just a little boy, I know, I said. We ain't got no people. My mama been dead. Overseer killed her. Seckish killed his mama yesterday. Oh, that gang. You know them? I asked him. Know of them, he said. Well, you don't have to go to Ohio. I'll find you a place to stay till you find somebody to take care of you. Where are you from? I told him about old master reading the proclamation to us and us starting out. Told him about the Seckish or patrollers who had killed the people. Even told him about Mr. Brown. Well, you don't have to go to Ohio now, he said. You and your friend Brown might not even... And your friend Brown, might not even be there. I'll find you a place to stay till you find yourself a home. I still think the best thing for both of you is going back, though. We ain't going back there, master, I said. Well, I'll find you a place to stay tonight, he said. He looked at Ned, holding the flint and the piece of iron. I say, little man, what them rocks for? He asked. Fire, Ned said. I say, the man said, and smoked his pipe. It was pitch black on the river, but I could see lights on the other bank. Looked like even before we got on the ferry. Oh my gosh. Looked like even before we got on the ferry, good, it had landed again. The man in the black suit took my bundle and got on his horse and told me and Ned to come along. Now, I was on the ground again, and it looked like I'd never been on a ferry. Ohio far from here, master? I asked. Afraid so, he said. This Louisiana you in? What? I stopped and looked up at him there in the dark. He held back on the reins, and the horse stopped. All the walking me and this little boy been doing, crossing a river on a ferry, you trying to say we're still in Louisiana? I asked. Afraid so, he said. Louisiana must be the whole wide world, I said. No, not exactly. Then how come we still in it? Nature more likely, he said. Page 35. I could hear him smoking his pipe. We started walking again. I want to go to Ohio, I said. Afraid you'll have to change your mind, he said. Ever heard of the Freedom Bureau? No, master. Well, according to the federal government, they're sending Yankees down here to help y'all out. See that y'all have something to eat, clothes, school, everything Brown promised you. You're going to have right here in Louisiana. You a Yankee? I asked. Afraid so, he said. Call me a government investigator. Hail from New York. That's farther than Ohio, I asked. Depending on where you stand and when you ask that question, he said. Maine? No. Louisiana? Yeah. I'm standing right here, I said. Right here in Louisiana, where it looked like I ain't ever going to leave from. He smoked on his pipe. I could hear it in the dark. Afraid so, he said. We came up to a big house where children was playing in the yard. The investigator got off the horse and told us to follow him. Another white man met us at the door. Two of them talked a while. Then the other white man called over his shoulder for somebody named Sarah. Sarah came in. She was a big black woman who looked after the children. The white man nodded toward us, and she told me and Ned to follow her. She took us upstairs to another big room. They had pallets spread out all over the floor. So if you remember, Pallets today, right? We store things on so they don't get ruined. Um, so you can kind of think of that, but it's also like a sleeping bag. And so that's what she's saying is a pallet. Sarah told me that's where the girls slept, and she pointed out a pallet for me. Then we went to another room where the boys slept, and she pointed out one for Ned. She asked us if we were hungry. I said yes, but we had food. She told me we didn't have to eat that no more. I could leave my bundle beside the pallet, or better yet, dump it in the trash. She told Ned he could leave that flint and iron by the pallet, or he could dump that in the trash too. She had good food in the kitchen for both of us, she said, and she would find something else for Ned to play with. I told her we would eat our food, but we wanted to keep what we had. Where we went, they went. She looked at me a little while, like she thought I was getting sassy with her. Then she said, "Suit yourself, follow me." We went downstairs to the kitchen and ate, and she told us we had to take a bath. I said I didn't want one. She said I had to take it if I wanted it or not, and she stuck me in a tub of soapy water and tried to wash my skin off. She even ducked my head under 2 or 3 times, and I'm sure she did it just because she thought I had sassed her upstairs. After she had wiped me off, she stuck me in a little white gown made like a sack. It wasn't nothing but a sack, and she told me to go upstairs to my pallet. A little while later, Ned came back upstairs with his little gown. He still had flint and iron in his hands. "Feel better?" I asked him. He nodded his head. "Get yourself a good night's sleep," I told him. "Tomorrow morning, when nobody's looking, we're getting out of here." Okay, so first of all, they didn't have really pajamas back then. And so what we might call a nightgown or a nightshirt is what people would have worn. And so that's what they're wearing. Sorry for yawning. I think I'm still tired. The investigator. So this is during like Reconstruction time. So white Northerners went down there to sort of help in the efforts to help get schooling for the little children, help get people settled. So that's kind of what they're doing. And so the man who's running this house on a plantation doesn't own the plantation. He's from the north also. What do you think? So, Miss Jane, there's no internet back then, right? So Miss Jane had never seen a ferry because she lived on a plantation her whole life, and the plantation wasn't near any water. She also has never seen a map, and so she doesn't realize how far Ohio might be from Louisiana. So she's a little confused, and to her, Louisiana might seem like the whole big world. Today, people her age, not much younger than you, would realize how small like the state of Massachusetts is. But for someone who doesn't read, who doesn't have technology, because there is none back then, she doesn't realize how big the world is. She probably doesn't even realize there's a whole bunch of countries out there. So her whole world right now is Louisiana, and we should make predictions. Is she ever going to get out of there? Because from what the federal investigator said, it doesn't sound like she has any need to leave Louisiana. So in your journal entries, you can decide and make a prediction on whether or not Jane ever leaves Louisiana. Okay? I'll see you for the next chapter.